should anything change in Pauper? I remember when this came out on Monday, I wanted to hold it off, right? Like I wanted to leave it. Oh man, no changes, I'm assuming, but let's see if we get any supposed changes that we might be looking at. Is still him to Turok? Is it still High Tide? Are we getting those type of unbans soon? Feels like something should have happened, but maybe this was, you know, Modern's big day and they didn't want to overshadow it. I don't know.
Good morning, Magic. I'm Gavin from Wizards of the Coast and the Pauper format panel. All of us on the panel have been monitoring the format and wanted to provide you all with a bit of a check-in. Overall, the format has felt stable and there has been plenty of variety, but a few decks have been taking up a lot of.
Yeah, so I mean, speaking of the Splinter Twin unban, Basking Broodscale has been alongside Sadistic Glee has been called Pauper Splinter Twin. I even made a video about it. Like this is like the Splinter Twin problem. And now with recent tools, Burn has become top of the metagame, right? The format is all about gaining a ton of life or just having removal exactly. And I mean, the bridges have kept Affinity at the top for a while. As an Affinity player, I don't know. It just feels like one of those matchups where whenever I play Affinity, y'all seem to always have the exile effect or the kind of monkey to kill all my stuff. But I don't know. Maybe I'm being salty.
Play and discussion recently, and we wanted to take the opportunity during this BNR update day to talk about those. While no cards are being banned today in Pauper, there are some cards and decks we have our eyes on. Would love to hear your feedback, so we thought we'd take you behind the scenes as to what we're talking about and hear your thoughts. What are the cards and what might you be able to expect going forward? Let's dig in. Okay, so when it comes to people talking about the format, a lot of the largest concerns people have right now revolve around 3 decks: Mono Red, Glee Combo, and Affinity. Now, Pauper continues to be quite diverse, with so many other kinds of decks being successful.
Okay, so you have, this is probably Mono White X, probably Mono White Aggro. Interesting that they're bringing in Prologue to Phyresis as Poison Storm. It's a deck. The best combo deck in the format is Cycle Storm. Let's be honest here. Cycle Storm is a deck. Avenging Hunter has been a win condition in green-based ramp strategies
from Terror to Mono White to Elves to Fairies to Boggles to Dredge to Ponza. Well,
Dredge, by the way, Squirrel Dredge, goated strategies. And even, okay, Land Destruction hasn't really been in the format for a hot minute though. I like, ever since we got that 4 mana threat, it's a 3/4, whatever, I'm forgetting it right now, but it's a 2/3 actually, but it's become mid-range. Like Gruul Land Destruction has become Gruul mid-range. It's not really Land Destruction.
There's a lot you can play with, but these 3 decks have been getting a lot of play, so let's focus on these 3 for now. First, let's talk about Mono Red. This is the most played deck in leagues, so you're liable to play against it a lot. And for good reason. It's fast and explosive, but doesn't sacrifice the ability to finish you off.
You know, it's really, my OCD is really bothering me that the first card that used to show up was Goblin Lackey. Was it Lackey? The 1 mana 1/2 that you can pay 3 and get a treasure and you draw a card. And then they're using Tomb Raider now, but then they're talking about how it's fast and use the same card as Tomb Raider when they could use Percussionist here to really show how fast that deck is and how resilient that deck is. And then Explosiveness on Galvanic Blast. I don't know. What are we using for visuals here? Come on. There's other cards in the deck that can highlight the point, and I feel like there might be a little bit of misinformation here. Come on, let's show the Percussionist.
And just like Clockwork, it's got a new pickup from Duskmourn in Clockwork Percussionist.
Okay, I went on a rant. There was.
So it's the most played deck.
There's a mid-range piece.
You have to be ready for it. And league incentives are to finish matches fast, so makes sense. However,
for those of you not understanding that, a lot of people talk about going like Modo Infinite, right? So if you go 3-2 in a league, you get your quote unquote money back and a little bit more for that league. So if you get a treasure chest and you get your money back on that league, then you can continue to play another league, get more. Like, you're still going positive with the 3-2 record. So Moto Infinite is going 3-2. Now, Moto Infinite and being competitively viable are very different things, but going Moto Infinite is a very baseline thing for a lot of strategies, and a lot of skilled pilots in many different formats can go Moto Infinite. It's just the time investment on that varies. A lot of skilled control pilots and mid-range pilots, of course, can go Moto Infinite, but their leagues might end up being like 3-4 hours. Whereas if you're playing something like an aggro deck, something like Burn, or actually in this case, in the form of Pauper, I was talking about Modern for a second there, but in terms of Pauper, you could play Burn, and your leagues and your games in general are way quicker. One of the reasons why, honestly, like, let me be honest here, one of the reasons why I love playing One Line Spy is if you just want to get some games of Magic in, you can get a league in like an hour. Because the combo deck is like, you win or you don't. It's very quick. You lose to yourself or you win because of yourself. And Burn can be like that too, where you can 3-2 very quickly, very efficiently, get multiple leagues throughout the day. And a lot of people like that because you can get a lot of value off of that just by getting a treasure chest or two. Sometimes you go 4-1, sometimes you go 5-0, and then you're just up on EV. So that's what they're talking about in terms of, wanting to play aggro decks over and over to go Moto Infinite, quote unquote. And you can do that very efficiently with your time.
Sits at about 52%. Despite being everywhere in leagues, it only sits just slightly above a 50-50 match win percentage. Now, it does carry a higher game 1 win percentage, something we have taken as a sign of polarity to knock the deck in the past.
Because game 2, that's when you bring in your Weather the Storms, and you kind of board, like you'll mulligan a little bit harder maybe to your main board life gain pieces and stuff like that. It's very hard to get, like, to beat Burn on their absolute nut draws. You start off with the Great Furnace into the Pauper Goblin Guide, and then you go turn to play out like another haste creature, and then you go Coldotha Rebirth on your Furnace, then you play another mountain, go like, build up your whole board. Like, it goes kind of crazy. Like, where's the card? Where is it? Bushwhacker. You go Bushwhacker on turn 3. Crazy big like Anthem. It's hard to beat Burn on these draws, or when you get a bunch of artifact out and you just go Gal Blast. Like, it's very hard.
In the past, as we talked about when we banned Monastery Swiftspear. It's unfavored against Affinity in the first game, but other than that, it's ahead against the most other played decks in the first game. Of course, in games 2 and 3, that can change pretty dramatically, as is often the case with Mono Red. This is certainly on the line for action, giving our past stances, and something we've talked about taking action on. If we were to hit a card, there are a few potential options. The package of Goblin, Bushwhacker, and Coldotha Rebirth is what gives it both its explosive energy and
I don't think you should ban either of these cards though.
Out of nowhere by dealing at least 8 damage from hand. Another plausible target for a smaller knock is Goblin Tomb Raider. Goblin Guide, when combined with Great Furnace, is just such a strong additional tool for this deck that has helped it come out of the gates so fast. All that said, a playable red deck is generally important for Health of Eternal formats. It keeps slower strategies in check, and the line between playable and not can be a razor's edge. And removing Rebirth or Bushwhacker could drop this deck below the line.
Maybe Rebirth,
what would you
but
want to see happen here?
Like, out of those 3, it's probably Rebirth. I don't think Goblin Bushwhacker. There's no way we're banning Goblin Bushwhacker in 2024. Let's be so for real. I don't think Tomb Raider's the ban either. It's a cool card, and yeah, you get that nutty turn 1, but there's only 4 artifact lands in the deck that you can make that work with. Yeah, it can be sacked to Rebirth, but even Rebirth is weird because like it used to be like a mid-range piece too, like out of the Boros mid-range decks.
About is Glee. Since Modern Horizons 3,
this is just a friggin' deadly. This is a Deadly Dispute deck with like a combo win condition. This is a Deadly Dispute deck.
The sadistic Glee
I was just going to bring up the fact that this deck is a combo deck. It's a mid-range deck with really powerful pieces. The Writhing Chrysalis is being an insane threat outside of this combo deck, just slotting into Gruul mid-range to turn it away from being land destruction. Like, land destruction doesn't matter when your opponent's able to combo off with like 1 to 2 mana. It does not matter. If you're not choking your opponent off of like 4 or 5 mana plays, what's the point of land destruction? So land destruction swapped into a Writhing Chrysalis mid-range Cascade plan. Now, the combo decks playing Writhing Chrysalis just have this mid-range plan. You play Deadly Disputes, Removal, Duress. Like, you're playing this really good plan with a bunch of chump blockers that the Writhing Chrysalis create. And then if you're not able to win that way, you win with the combo. If they get rid of the combo, you're able to win with the Chrysalises. So
This power the everlasting presence in the format, Affinity. It's the third most played deck, although there's a huge gap between this and the other two. This deck has been around for ages and is still always some.
okay, well, calling it this deck has been around for ages is different. The archetype has been around. To be fair, the archetype was bad, and then you printed the bridges out of Modern Horizons 2. These, look at the set symbols. Look at the set symbols. Modern Horizons printed these damn bridges. Yo, I don't know. It's just, it doesn't feel like Affinity has been banned for so many years out of the format. People talking about we need to ban the original, I think, lands. If you ban the OG untapped lands out of this format, Pauper dies. I'm being so for real. And if you think that's not true, you're screwed. You don't play enough Pauper. You haven't been around long enough. This is format identity. This is like telling people ban Forcible out of Legacy. The untapped artifact lands are format identity. It's why it's one of the many reasons why people want to come play Pauper, because power like this exists, but it can be kept in check. The problem was when you print the dual tapped indestructible bridges, that is where it became a problem, because now you needed exile based or shuffle based removal on the Affinity decks, and that completely changed the name of the game. We've been banning Affinity for years and years and years, and that's because as the format grows, as more powerful cards gets introduced, Affinity will always be resilient, and other decks will be resilient. We don't get rid of the primary like kind of underlying cause. We just manage some of the things that get added in and of itself. The bridges with a power spike that not only helped Affinity, by the way, but helped the artifact package become universally strong in other strategies. We see this in Grixis Burn. We see a soft bit of artifact synergies in Burn because Galvanic Blast is an insane threat. So there's a soft artifact theme in there. Artifacts is just really powerful in Pauper. I don't think we need to nerf them. It's just identity. We need to be aware of what we're using to help them. I think the bridges are the problem. The tapped indestructible bridges are the problem.
In leagues, though, it's sitting at a 50% win rate. Wow. I know that sounds wild, but this powerhouse is essentially even against the field. While it does have some great matchups, it is behind against Terror, Glee, and Madness, 3 wildly popular decks.
Yeah.
That said, if we changed anything else about the format, I expect that win rate would come up. So then maybe Affinity would need a ding. We have talked about the artifact lands plenty as a huge ding, and those could still end up touched. After the last video where we talked about them substantially, the general feeling from the community was that the original should be preserved, but the Modern Horizons 2 ones could potentially go.
Yes.
While that is still a possible resort, there is a different card that has gained some discussion recently. Deadly Dispute. Since being printed, this card has shown up consistently. And
so if you ban Deadly Dispute, right? Okay. So this is interesting. I want to throw out my piece before we hear Gavin's here. If you ban Deadly Dispute, the format like fundamentally changes. Like at a baseline, right? Like this is one of the key engine pieces. This is almost equivalent to banning the untapped artifact lands. It's so like this right here defines an archetype. This is mid-range. This is value in so many decks. If you're able to build around it, and so many decks have, this is better than Brainstorm. This card is legitimately better than Brainstorm, equal to, if not better than Brainstorm in so many strategies in the Pauper format based on how graveyards and sacrifice value works. It would be fundamentally game changing. Black base mid range would plummet in terms of playability. A lot of the comeback and the value you get like from so many cards would disappear. Blue would be just at the top of the roost again, right? Because blue just has access to the best card draw. Black no longer does. So
and it's currently used as a 4-of in Affinity, Glee, and more. While initially we were hesitant because there's just so many variations on this effect, from Eviscerator's Insight to Fanatical Offering to Reckoner's Bargain,
So the difference here is that, so just so everyone understands, yes, you have different variations. Reckoner's Bargain is mainboard in Affinity as a anti-burn tech in the mainboard, which is great. You can sacrifice a Mirror Enforcer, gain a bunch of life, draw 2 cards. Fanatical Offering gives you a map token, which is significantly worse. Giving you a treasure token is key, because in 3-color Affinity, giving you access to a different color is really valuable. There are legitimate situations where you're stuck on 2 and you need a Deadly Dispute, not only to draw cards, but also to give yourself a treasure into something else. This keeps you even on mana. Like, getting a treasure tokens makes Deadly Dispute functionally cost like 1. Fanatical Offering is close. It gives you a map token, which is still an artifact, so it keeps your affinity count like there. It's just not the same. And I think they showed it, the one with like flashback. That one's interesting, but probably
Treasure
like
really does a lot time and time again. From fixing mana to being an artifact for Affinity to just making the spell de facto cost 1 mana, the versatility has made it a Pauper all-star. Pauper has a lot of different cores and staple cards that appear across multiple
burn deck
decks.
control.
We don't view this as an inherent problem, whether it's Brainstorm and Shuffle effects or Core Skyfisher and Thraben Inspector. These cores make a variety of
mid-range
work, and different decks use them in different ways. These can be fine and good for the format. However, Deadly Dispute and artifacts that draw when they go away, like Ichor Wellspring, gives that such a powerful draw engine and is self-fueling with that treasure. We could see axing this card as just a slight ding to Affinity while curbing the engines it fuels across the format. Would love to know what you think about these cards and decks. One thing to consider as you're thinking about them right now is that there's a good bit of rock, paper, scissors happening, where Glee is favored against Affinity, Affinity is favored against Red, and Red is favored against Glee. Knock any of those and the balance would be upset. So it's possible even if something doesn't meet the threshold for action now, it could after any other change. Right now, the format does look pretty good and diverse, even with those 3 decks.
So, I mean, like Core Skyfisher, you have the white base aggro because they have that protection spell, Prismatic, it's not Vista, Prismatic something, Strands, where you can put it into your graveyard off like a Connive effect, and then tap like 2 untap white creatures, you gain protection for a turn from a color. So it gives you like big swings against red. Slippery Bogle, Bogle is just insane. If you make a giant Bogle and attach lifelink to it, Burn cannot beat you. They cannot beat you. Like, very few decks in the format can beat you off a giant Bogle. This is a deck that loses to itself because it's how you draw and how you mulligan. And Terror is just really good, right? Like, Terror, if you can kill their first like 2 threats, you're probably in a good place to win. If you can't, they've out-tempoed you in the game.
At the top. Is it worth upsetting? What would you like to see happen? Are you happy with things as is? Let us know in the comments down below. Now, 2 more things I want to talk about.
You know why I'm happy? I'm a combo player. Myself, Cycle Storm, and One Land Spy and other combo decks. I'm slowly trying to learn Zubera Storm. Let me know if you want to see gameplay of that coming to the channel. But if the format's fast, combo decks are great. I'm all here for it.
Talk about while here. The first is, you might be wondering, if none of those decks are sitting above 52%, then what actually is winning? Well, plenty of other decks. Wildly enough, after all these years, Mono Blue Fairies is still cruising with about a 55% win rate. White Red Synthesizer, a deck many have been saying is poorly positioned in the meta right now, is sitting at 54%. And for a fun one, although the sample size is extremely small, Blue Black Green Poison Storm is sitting with a 58% win rate. All this is to say, there's a ton of variety.
Shout out! Yo, shout out! I was talking mad smack. Hey, they are saying the sample size is small. But shout out to Poison Storm. Yo, shout out to Poison Storm. That is crazy. I think this is the inside out combo with these two. This is Cycle Storm. Yo, Poison Storm. Okay. Yo, let me get some hype in the comments for the Poison Storm players.
There's a lot you can win with in this format.
Serpentine Curve. Oh,
and
walls and
to go and try some stuff.
Yo, let's make Pauper a Pro Tour format. Let's have Pauper RCQs.
Talk a bit about format history here, and I promise it's relevant. Pauper really got its start on Magic the Gathering Online. An accessible way to play, it was eventually codified as a format. Anything common on Magic Online was legal to play. As the format grew, people began trying it in paper as well. And hey, it's pretty fun. But there was one weird quirk. What legality list should be used? Should it be the list?
So there was a recent problem with this actually, where cards made common on Arena would not be made Pauper legal. And I'm like, yo, what is the damn point of that freaking client? Like, yo, as someone who honestly every so often throws down on some timeless, and I've been trying to get in a standard as well. What is the point of that? We have allowed for cross legality of MTGO and paper. I guess it's like another thing to track. But yo, come on. There's already a handful of cards, honestly, that aren't even implemented on Magic Online that you should be able to play with in paper. That honestly would make some changes. I've brought up repeatedly, thanks to Brian Cook, actually, like kind of bringing it to the forefront of certain cards that would be played in one land spied, so that you could potentially not have to sideboard into a red-green land and continue to stay black-green and play with different kind of black and green options to stop the various decks that are able to play against you.
List of cards was printed on Magic. Recently, we've had a lot of questions about Pioneer Masters, and specifically Arena's impact on Pauper. Are there any plans to make those cards legal? The answer is no. Pauper's legality is only the way it is because it started on Magic Online. It's a weird grandfathered in quirk to not just kick out cards that have become staples. Someday, if all the relevant cards are printed at common and paper, come on, Common Chainer's Edict, I could even see ditching the Magic Online clause altogether. Additionally, Arena does not always offer Pauper, and when it does, it's a substantially different format than what exists elsewhere. So while those reprints are cool, no, they're.
What is this? When Undead Butler enters mill 3 cards, when Butler dies, you may exile it. You return target creature. Okay. All right. Cool. 4 mana. Whenever you cast a spell that targets creature. Oh, that's a fun one. Bestow double strike. Double strike. Hey yo. Hey yo. Bogles players. Ghostblade Eidolon though.
Are no plans to bring them to Pauper.
Yeah.
That only makes it more confusing when now there are 3 different places you have to check cards for legality for. Anyway, there's a bit of history for you. Just something to mention while we're here. Thanks for watching, everybody, and let us know your thoughts on if you'd want to see anything banned in the comments down below. You can expect another update around the next time we check in with all formats.
Probably March. List.
On behalf of the entire Pauper format panel, thank you for playing the format and for all your notes and thoughts. And until next time, I hope you have joy playing Pauper. You got this.
The first of them?
So here's my final thoughts on the Pauper format. I feel like something needs to change, right? I feel like there has to be something, but I'm just not sure if... Look, I think, I'm down for, as an Affinity player, for the tapped artifact bridges to go. If out of the 3 cards mentioned out of burn, like I'm not saying Galvanic Blast, Lightning Bolt, those cards need to go. I could see Rebirth going. It does stop the explosiveness of the deck and take it away from being an on-ground type of strategy. Because if you lose Rebirth, you lose the Bushwhacker. There's no point in whacking. You go more spell-based. It becomes slower. You go with the untaps. Like there's creatures out there that rely on you casting different spells in a turn and doing a certain amount of damage there. So you'll play something like a Firebrand Archer or a something Alchemist, I believe it was. It's 2 mana, and then you tap to deal 1, and whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, you untap it. So you tap it on your turn, cast a bunch of spells, tap on tap, and you do a bunch of turn like damage over time. But it still relies on more of these creatures, and if you remove them, a lot of their damage is kind of taken away from them, so it's a lot more manageable. The problem is then, obviously, like you would have to do, like it's like what Gavin was saying, you'd have to do a ban uniformly. Like I feel like drop the bridges, ban Rebirth, and then it's got to be Brood Scale. Now the problem is Chrysalis. Now the thing is like, what if you kept Brood Scale and dropped Chrysalis? Then burn is down. You have a removal heavy meta ideally, because then maybe Terror comes up. You play a removal heavy meta game where you're not really relying on life gain too much because burn is taken down a peg, right? And it's a lot more easier to counter out because it's more spell based. Affinity is a lot slower, so you're just playing more removal. So combo could exist. The Splinter Twin situation could exist. And I'm wondering if we just get into a state where like this becomes like Modern, where we're just asking for a Brood Scale unban later in Pauper down the line. I'm not sure. I think Brood Scale could exist depending on the changes. The fear is that like if, you know, Wizards of the Coast is staying with these like kind of bans that take a bunch of time, like you have to wait for these windows. Like, I mean, now if you want to do this based on when the next time all formats are checked in on, now all formats are being touched on based on the RCQ season, even though they're not RCQ formats. So again, another argument, maybe we should make Pauper an RCQ format, a Pro Tour format, a tournament format that people can play to qualify for things. You know, Pauper is going to go around back in March 2025. Legacy is as well. I understand that Legacy has a lot more nuance as to, you know, how they even approach that being a format legally, and I don't think they can because of the reserve list. It's just that I think we can do that with Pauper justifiably as well. It's just another reason. If we're going to follow this ban schedule, I think there's reason to it. It's a format that a lot more people need to play. It's a format that I think many of you watching this video love as well. I think changes need to be made. And even though I like it based on where combo is, it doesn't mean that's where it needs to be. Combo should exist in the format, but it should be kind of managed. It should be able to be self-managed, like it loses to itself, or even when it goes off, it's still able to be countered. Like One Line Spy, very easy to interact with. Even Cycle Storm, very easy to interact with if you understand the key points and what to counter and all that stuff. So anyway, great video. Kind of upset nothing changed here, but I also understand that as a Modern player, this was a big time for Modern changes to happen. Also, all EDH players, like, y'all need to take a back seat. Constructed players, it's our time. It's our time. EDH, like, y'all will have your time. Y'all will have your time. Anyway, have a good day, y'all. Hope y'all are playing some Pauper, brewing some Modern, whatever it is. Maybe even some Legacy now with the changes to the metagame. And hope y'all are just enjoying some Magic overall.